My name is Kevin Gallagher. I'm a senior at the high school here. I am an IB student. I'm the senior class vice president, and I'm the yearbook editor. So got a little bit going on there.
Yeah, you got all
I
those.
born and raised here. I went through all the all the Summit schools. So yeah, that's my little spiel, I guess.
Awesome. So you've been through all three levels of the program.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about, let's start out with now. Why have you chosen to be in the IB program, in the DP program specifically?
Um, well, for me, it sort of began when my brother did it. He did it 2 years ago. He graduated in 2020, and that was sort of a big thing for me. And also, I remember going on all his college tours and being like, "Ugh." But all the college tours were like, we want to see you taking the most rigorous courses that your schools offer and succeeding in them. So that was sort of a big drive. I didn't really know a ton about what the DP program structure looked like in comparison to like MYP or PYP or whatever.
Mm.
But I just sort of figured I would just dive off the deep end and figure it out.
So how's your experience been in the DP program?
It's been pretty good. It's taught me a lot. It's definitely like a stressful program at times. I can't say that it's like for everyone, but it's been super useful. I feel like up until you get to the DP program, you sort of are building skills in individual areas. And then once you hit that like 11th grade, 12th grade DP program, that's when they all start to come together.
Mm.
And so it's been really cool to watch my education in all these separate areas sort of form into not only like one big sort of conglomeration of knowledge, but also like being able to see that in the real world.
I love that. So tell me a little bit about, like, what do you imagine that progression was? Like, when you think about what kinds of things in elementary school or middle school help prepare you for something like this?
Well, I mean, obviously building like the foundational skills and stuff like that, but it was also sort of like learning, wait for the group to walk by, sort of learning, like I just remember the PYP units being like dinosaurs and like all that sort of fun stuff, and you sort of build those skills and build that curiosity, and then once you get that curiosity to drive you forward into, I want to learn about complex issues, then it sort of starts to all fall into place a little bit. But within the DP program specifically, like it's just sort of it's encouraged, like you do an IA in math, and like it's a paper, but it's taking your English skills and your math skills, and then in history it sort of all falls back on what we're talking about in TOK today, and in psychology you see why people make the decisions they do in like the sciences, and whatever, it's just sort of all clicked together.
Awesome. Tell us a little bit about TOK classes.
So TOK stands for Theory of Knowledge, for those who aren't already aware, and it basically teaches you, well, it doesn't really teach you anything, it sort of gives you the tools to develop like a sense of the world outside of school. I know Mr. Daniels, who's our TOK teacher, stresses a lot like this is a real life situation that like maybe you should take a lot more time to consider than you think. It's all about learning about how we know things, what systems have been used by those before us to determine what knowledge is and what it isn't, and what's a fact and what's an opinion, and sort of etc. But then also like checking the validity of that knowledge and the validity of the people talking. So TOK is sort of an interesting component because it can draw on anything you've learned so far or things that you haven't learned, and sort of make you really consider the truth and the value behind that knowledge.
That's awesome. Do you know what your TOK CAS project is?
Yeah, so I'm actually doing my CAS project with AV,
Oh,
who is doing it. Another group in our um, like TOK DP class is writing an album for their cast project. So we are sort of running with them, and we're going to turn that into like a show here at SHS where they get to debut their album, and then we're going to hopefully take all the funds that we raise and donate them to Building Hope to sort of give back to the community and hit the like service aspect of CAS.
cool. Can you tell us a little about CAS for those people who don't know?
Yeah, so CAS stands for Creativity, Activity, Service, and basically like I remember when we were first started to talk about it, I remember describing it to my friends as like it's like a life outside of your IB classroom. Like they're trying to push you to get involved in your community, get involved in yourself, invest in your hobbies and your life outside of your school itself. So that's sort of the whole component. It's sort of that whole like well-rounded thing. Like IB wants their students to come out not only, having a lot of knowledge and all the book smarts, but also being able to go out into the world and know themselves, know how to better themselves, and then sort of know like how to face hard situations or come across struggles and solve them without like a classroom setting being involved.
That's awesome. So thinking like backwards from your CAS project to your personal project, which was still again in high school, and thinking way back to your exhibition project in elementary school. Do you remember what your exhibition project was?
My exhibition project was about technology in the military and how it was sort of ever changing. And I remember that one being kind of really cool. I remember not wanting to do it at first, actually. I was like, oh, I don't know how I got into this topic. I don't remember the whole process, but I was like, but I remember we had our mentor come in, and it was one of the parents. I don't know if they still do it that way, but back in my day, it was one of the parents. And she actually had like military connections, so we got to talk to people from the military about what was going on with like technology. We were little fifth graders, and so it was sort of entertaining. But I remember that being really, really cool. And then fast forwarding 6 years to my personal project, I remember struggling to pick a topic there because I was like, it could be anything. It's so open-ended. That's something IB really drives home, is they want their students to be able to choose, but with choice comes, the weight of making a decision, which isn't always easy, and there are always people there to help you narrow things down. But my personal project ended up being learning German, just because I was planning on going to Germany that summer, and then COVID happened. But also, like, I have German family and stuff, so being able to talk with them in German was really neat. And, I sort of remember also starting off a little like with the personal project too, but now like it's opened up a total whole new door for me, and now I'm sort of biting my foot because I've been wrong this whole time. But it really was like it pushed you to do something, learn something new that's totally up to you. And now like I have this whole other global perspective from learning a new language. So
you've talked a couple of times about like the choice being like, but then it ended up being a great thing for you. Do you see that in other parts? Like do you take non-IB classes, right? So do you see that being unique to the IB classes now?
I think definitely a little bit, just because it goes beyond like choosing your essay prompt for this essay or whatever. Like it really goes into starting with course selections. It's like, okay, what do you want to focus in on? Like, and I could talk all about course selections, but it's sort of a big choice in your EE. For those who don't know, it's a 4,000 word paper, 4,000 word limit. You don't have to get exactly there, but on any subject of your choosing. And then, so you choose the subject, you formulate a research question, you work with one of our IB teachers here to sort of whittle things down and write a huge paper. I actually just turned mine in. Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It was a big deal. But there's just, I would argue like, it's not like there's not choice in other classes, but just sort of the scope of the decisions you have to make. But I also think it's reflective of the real world. It's like, you're gonna have to choose what you wanna study in college, you're gonna have to choose where you wanna work, and those are huge open-ended options, especially once you get out there and see the world. So I sort of think like being able to make your own decisions and be confident in the decisions you've made is like a skill that's unique to IB, especially when it comes to sort of more like bigger events.
I like that. What was your EE on?
I wrote my EE on psychology. My research question was to what extent are depressive symptoms correlated with social media use? So I poured through a ton of research about that. And, the thing with the EE, and I can't speak for other subjects, but in psychology, it's like they don't want you to read like just an article on it. It's like find studies, find the actual literature. What are the grad students? What are the post grads? What are the scientists actually saying about this topic? So that was sort of a big deal. I remember opening my first research study and being like, oh my gosh, it's 80 pages and there's tables and stuff. And then I remember once you go through like, I don't remember how many sources I had, maybe 10 or 11. And once I got to my 11th, I was like, okay, I know exactly where I need to go. I know how to digest this, cut it down. Yeah, so it's just.
So having something that was interesting to you, that you had the agency to actually pick out, and then really following through with the rigor and the expectations of the course.
Yeah. And that's what sort of balances out that sort of heavy research aspect of the EE, but also IB. It's like you're able to invest in your education because you're interested in it.
It's relevant to you, interesting.
Yeah, like, and I'm not going to sit here and say every class is always relevant to me, but I think if you find the interest in every class, you can easily make it relevant to you, and I think IB is a really great way to do that. They have it laid out really well.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Of course, thank you.
What advice would you give to people who are considering the IB experience or DP program?
Oh gosh. There's so much. I think first and foremost, you have to either already have or be able to develop a good relationship with education in school. I think that's a skill I definitely had to learn because it is a lot of work. Like, they don't design it to be easy, but you sort of have to find a love and a passion for learning if you don't already have that. And I don't know if I really had that when I started, but like now I feel like I definitely do. Because otherwise it is just a ton of work that you don't want to do. But if you find the interest in it, that's really what's the game changer. That's really what can draw you in. And I think the IB structures that really well. I would also say make sure you know yourself, know if this is the right program for you. It's not for everyone. I would not advise that we send all of our kids down the DP path, and I mean, I'm sure we could do it, but it's just sort of, you need to be in touch with yourself and be realistic, but also be a risk taker. That's one of the IB principles, is you need to, sort of jump off the deep end a little bit when you start your DP career. And, all the kids I know who've done that, I can't think of a single kid who's sort of failed yet or dropped the program or anything, because like the support and the structure is there, but if you don't believe in yourself and your education, that's where things start to falter.